In 1995, I made one of the biggest mistakes of my gaming life, and it's only until recently that I had the opportunity to correct a wrong that was made so long ago. Coming up on The Big Retro Show. Hey, what is up, you guys? This is Los from The Big Retro Show, and I hope that this video finds you well. It is Christmas Eve, and I have a lot to celebrate. I'm really ecstatic right now, and that is because I received the opportunity to right a wrong that I made in 1995 when I sold my Super Nintendo Entertainment System and all of my games for a PS1. Yes, it is a mistake that I regret making way back then, especially since retro gaming has made such a huge comeback and now everybody is collecting Super Nintendo games. But at the time, I was working at an office and I had a Super Nintendo. I had all of the great games, guys. I had Super Metroid, A Link to the Past, I had Mortal Kombat, I had all of the games that I loved playing. But to be honest with you guys, I was just bored of it. Then one day at work, this guy said, hey, I have a PS1 for sale. And at the time, the PS1 had been out for maybe a month or two. And so I was interested right off the bat of acquiring this PS1 that my coworker had. But, he was asking like $100 for it. And I didn't have $100 at the time, and even though I was working, I was still making like $7 an hour at my job, and I just couldn't afford it. I was paying my car payments and my insurance, and well, you guys know how that is, paying your bills, but I just didn't have it, and so something had to give, right? And since my Super Nintendo was there and I wasn't really playing it, I thought, maybe I could flip this Super Nintendo and use the money to buy this PS1. And so that's what I did. I found somebody at work that wanted to buy it off of me, and I must have sold it with a good 20-25 games. Yeah, at the time, I just didn't care. I wanted the PS1 and nothing was going to get in my way because of course the PS1 was awesome. It was the new toy of that era, and the games looked phenomenal, to be honest with you. And so I wanted to have that PS1, and I knew that this guy was selling it for maybe 30 or 40 bucks cheaper than it was in the stores. And this was my opportunity to get into the next generation. And so, yeah, I sold it regrettably. And throughout the years, as gaming systems come and go, the Super Nintendo has been one of these systems that has stood the test of time. It is still a great system, and I know I've talked hella smack about how the Sega Genesis won the console wars of the 90s, and it's true. I stand behind that. I still think that the Sega Genesis won the console wars, but let's be honest, okay? I cannot deny that the Super Nintendo was a fabulous system, and it is one of these consoles that has stood the test of time, like I said. And so through the years, I have had several attempts to acquire a Super Nintendo, and I did so way back, but I didn't have the library. Nobody was selling games for a good price. And so I went on eBay and I bought myself a Super Nintendo. At the time, though, it only came with a couple of games, right? I think it came with like Super Metroid and Saturday Night Slam Masters. And this console wouldn't play them. So my dreams of playing Super Nintendo were shattered because this console sucked. I mean, it required the pin replacement on it, and I just I put it away, never to dig it back up and actually fix it. And so fast forward until a couple of months ago, right? And I must have acquired this Super Nintendo like several years ago. So fast forward to a couple of months ago when I was scanning Facebook Marketplace, as I usually do I usually try to look for deals on Facebook Marketplace, and I saw that my friend Rick over in the town away was selling a bunch of Super Nintendo games, and I was just like, this is my chance, okay, to get back the collection that I lost all those years ago. And that's exactly what I did, guys. So I got all of these games from my buddy Rick, who hooked me up, basically hooked me up. These were Super Nintendo games that a lot of these I had in my library back in the day, but a lot of them I didn't, but I still wanted to pick it up. And as you can see, well, you can't really see right now. I guess I'm gonna have to capture some footage for you of the actual titles. There's a lot of good games in here, guys. Now, I'm not gonna talk about all of the games, but there are some that I do want to go over and just share a little bit of my memories about them.
The first game I'm going to talk about is Donkey Kong Country, and what a great game this was for the Super Nintendo. Donkey Kong Country came late in the Super Nintendo's life and was a game that I would play often. The game was developed by the geniuses at Rare and made a use of pre-rendered graphics that made the character models look 3D. This was groundbreaking stuff at the time because before Donkey Kong Country came along, it was thought that the Super Nintendo did not have the capability to display 3D models. There's not a lot to be said about DK Country that hasn't already been said. The game took many elements from the Mario series to reimagine Donkey Kong. What I remember most about this game is the dang letters sprinkled throughout the game that I always used to go crazy if I didn't find. I would play the levels over and over again to try and find the letter, and wouldn't feel like I could move on unless I could find every single one of them. The other thing that I really love about this game is the excellent music. Now, don't get me wrong, the graphics were extremely impressive along with the gameplay, but the music really wrapped it up quite nicely. The second game that I want to mention that I recently reacquired is Street Fighter II Turbo. When the original Street Fighter II made its way onto the Super Nintendo for the very first time, my friend JD and I just went bonkers on this game and played it to death. Street Fighter II was the arcade equivalent of Street Fighter II Championship Edition and blew our minds because we could finally play as the enemy bosses. The game was fast and furious and made us feel like we were in the arcades. I don't have anything negative to say about Street Fighter II Turbo except that once I got this version in my library, I never went back to the original Street Fighter II. You win! The last game I want to mention that I recently reacquired is F-Zero. Anyone who watches the show knows that I am not a racing game fan. In fact, I find them tedious and boring. And this is because I commute to work and often feel like throwing bananas and bombs at my fellow commuters. When I get home, all I want to do is blow shit up, not drive around in a car. But back in the day, I was a kid, and I couldn't drive around anywhere, so racing games were dope. And the dopest racing game on the SNES, for me, was F-Zero. You get to race these futuristic cars and make use of the Super Nintendo's Mode 7 goodness to get the edge. I had never seen a game like F-Zero back in the day, and it's still one of my favorite games to play on the Super Nintendo. It's a shame that Nintendo has not brought this great franchise back for the Switch.
And that's going to do it for today's episode of the Big Retro Show, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please drop me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you didn't, drop me a comment, give me a thumbs down, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I will see you next time on the Big Retro Show. Peace.